Okay, so this is working pretty good. We can go to 5 results, we can go to 10 results, and it's switching based on what we do. But the question is, how do I get to the next page? If I've got 5 results, it shows me the first 5 schools. How do I get to the next 5, and the next 5 after that, and the next 5, and to know where I am? How do I change, right? Now that's easy enough if I just create a whole bunch of buttons. I could just create 10 buttons and, just number 1, pass that in. Our program would take number 1 and calculate what we were on and feed those results, number 2, number 3. But the problem with that is that what if there's, so if they go 20 at a time, for example, and we have 25 projects total, we should only have 2 buttons. If they're going 10 at a time, then we should see 3 buttons, right? If it's 5 at a time, then we should see 5 buttons. And so, like I say, we could just make 10 buttons to be safe, but then a bunch of them wouldn't be pointing to any particular page. They'd just be blank. And then what happens if we get 1,000 projects? Then all of a sudden we don't have enough buttons. And so we need this to be dynamic. We need these buttons to be generated based on the number of results that we get. And so that's what we want to work on next. So hang with me on this one. There's a little more to it. And so than there was with this. And so let's work together on this thing. So what do I need to know in here to decide how many buttons I have? If I know the page size and I know the page number that I'm on, what do I need to know to calculate the total number of buttons that I'm going to create? Well, I'm missing something, right? It's really simple. I have the page size, but I don't know what. I don't know how many results there are. And is there anywhere in React on this front end that I do know how many results came in, how many results there are? No, because I'm filtering up here on the .NET side, on the server, I'm filtering the results and passing them down. So on the React side, I only know what I'm getting. I don't know how many results there were. So I need to figure out on the .NET side and somehow communicate to React how many total results there were. Well, that's easy enough. I could come in here, create a var, and call it total num projects, and set it equal to and it's even doing it for me there, go out to our context file, go into the projects, and get a count. That's easy. But I don't have a view bag to pass it down. I don't have anything that's just built in right there to get it down to the view. And I can return total number of projects instead of something, but then it doesn't give the list of the JSON file with all the project info. And so I've got this little dilemma now where I've got 2 different things I need to pass in, but I only have one return statement which can return one thing. And so what do? That's what we need to solve. So I can actually pass more than one thing in. So I can pass in 2 things at a time, but they have to be all wrapped together in one object. And so the way that I can do it is to return a new object that has 2 things in it. And you see how it's helping me out here? I'm going to return something that has this called it projects, entry called projects, that is going to load up with the something, and then I've got total num project, which is going to load up with this variable total num projects. So I can return an object that has both, but it's giving me an error, and the reason it's giving me an error is what? Because what I said I was going to pass back was a list of projects. Well, as it turns out, it's not a list of projects. This, if I hover over it, will turn into a list of projects, but this is just going to be an int. And so I need to, rather than passing back an IEnumerable of type project, I'm just going to pass back a generic IActionResult, a generic object that's going to return that information. Okay, so IActionResult. It still doesn't like this for some reason. Projects is not null here. Cannot implicitly convert this type to an IActionResult. And what it wants is, let's see, this needs to be in parentheses first of all, and then as we're passing in this information, there's a way to do it that we say return, because we're returning this object, we say OK. And what this does is, this OK is a 200 status in our world of networking, saying that this is this object was returned OK. So this is a different way of returning information that works with this iAction result that will allow us to pass in these two objects of dissimilar types to our whatever is calling our API. All right, so we change this to an iAction result, and we, instead of just using a generic return, we say return OK, and then we pass in the object. Now I want to be clear here that if we wanted to, we could go in and build a new object. I could say var some object and set it equal to a new object that had this information in there, and then instead of returning any of this stuff, I could just return some object. That's totally okay as well. I'm building a generic object here, and I could return that. I could also, if I wanted to, go into my data folder and build something here, so a new class. And this class could be called, what was our component called? Project list. So this is the project list data that it needs. I can add that class, and I could say, well, this project list data is going to have a list of type project. That's going to be the first thing that we'll refer to as projects. And it's also going to have an int that keeps track of the total number of projects. I could save this, and then back to my water controller, I could, instead of creating just a generic object, I could say, look, I want to create a new instance of a, what did I call it? Project list data, and it's going to be equal to, and I'll just call it blah, equal to a new instance of a project list data, and the information that it has in there is to put that information in there, and then what I could return out of here instead of this is a blah, which is my instance of the project list data. I've just shown you 3 different ways you could pass this information in. We could just do it directly in the return function with an anonymous function. We could do it this way, where we go create a model and put the information into the model and then return the model. Now, if I'm doing something over and over and over again, that makes sense to go build a model. If I'm constantly going to be returning projects and total number of projects in different actions all throughout my program, or even if I'm doing it twice, it's nice to have a built-in component. But the reason that probably my preferred methodology would be the second way we did it, which was to go in and just do this some object. I don't like doing stuff inside the return statements. You can, I don't prefer it. I like this method because we're never going to use this object again, so it feels like it's probably overkill to go create a model, right? But I do like the clarity of having this set up here and then just returning the object there. Does that make sense? And so hopefully that makes sense, what we just did. Hopefully you understand that. This is going to get the 2 pieces of information that we need back down in the JSON object. And I don't know if let's see if we have time to do this. Save that file. I don't think we're going to have time. We'll look at it in the next video, but that's going to build this into the object and pass it back down when the user makes when the React makes the request. And so however we do it, we're going to get these 2 pieces of information and feed it back down to React and consume it on the other side. Spencer out.